Welcome. I'm Tom Jacobs, and I'm the chair of the Bennington Select Board. We are meeting, this is the second Monday in June. It's June 13th. We're at the Bennington Fire Facility in the wonderful, luxurious, multi-purpose room on the third floor. The agenda we have circulated, but before we do that, I'd like to introduce my colleagues and the management team. Linda Bermudez, on my far right, is our esteemed secretary, our gallant town manager, Stu Hurd. And go ahead, introduce yourself.
I'm Jean Connor.
I'm Justin Corcoran. I'm Jim Carroll.
Michael Keane, and I'm still me.
Jean Connor.
I'm Justin Corcoran.
I'm Jeannie Jenkins.
Good evening, I'm Donald
Michael Keane, and I'm still me.
Next time we'll go the other way. So,
Jean Connor.
I'm Justin Corcoran.
I'm Jeannie Jenkins.
normally we would
Good
start
evening, I'm
with
Donald
Michael Keane, and I'm
I would
still
like to
me.
just make this comment.
Jean Connor.
I'm Justin Corcoran.
I'm Jeannie Jenkins.
Normally they are
Michael Keane, and I'm
I would
still
like to
me.
just make this bylaws unsuspecting.
Jean Connor.
I'm Justin Corcoran.
I'm Jeannie Jenkins.
Normally they are
Michael Keane, and I'm still me.
bylaws unsuspecting.
Jean Connor.
I'm Justin Corcoran.
I'm Jeannie Jenkins.
Normally they are
Michael Keane, and I'm still me.
bylaws unsuspecting.
I'm Jeannie Jenkins.
Normally they are
There might be. So, yes, that was possible, but
But Mary will not
there
be-
might. Okay, thanks, because I don't want to.
Thanks, Mary.
So,
Other folks?
thank you.
Mary will not
There
be-
might. Okay, thanks, because I don't want to.
Go on to the first business item that is on our agenda. Efficiency Vermont is going to provide us with a presentation. Questions and answers will follow. The first business item. Good evening. On our agenda, Efficiency Vermont is going to provide us with a presentation. Questions and answers will follow.
For those of you that I
Good evening.
haven't met,
Speak right into the. Yeah, thank you.
for those of you who I have,
Answers will follow.
for those of in the town of Bennington for our targeted community initiative that has been going on for the past 5 months. And I've been working with John Shanahan at the BBC, Matt Harrington at the Chamber, Michael Harrington, Jeannie Jenkins, and many others that are here this evening. So we've been in the community, as I mentioned, for the past 5 months. And the report that was circulated here, this one-page piece, has all of the information as of 3 months as far as the results, activities that were undertaken, whether it be the number of business visits that happened, the number of workshops that happened, and some other community initiatives that have taken place during this time period. And I will add that under the activities undertaken piece, that in addition to these in Bennington. And as far as the next steps piece here that's laid out, there'll be additional presentations. In addition to what's happening here this evening, there will be some that will happen at Rotary. We're working to do some mobile home outreach, additional presentation on a presentation with CAT TV to help explain the home audit process, which has been a barrier. We are working on additional print advertising that's happening with the Bennington Banner, and we're working with John to develop a survey about lessons learned in areas of improvements where customers, whether it be Bennington Banner, commercial customers, thought that there could be improvements about lessons learned in areas of improvements, so on and so forth. Where customers, whether it be commercial customers, thought that there could be improvements about lessons. And also in the packet, there's some literature that has been circulated, whether it be in the banner or other means of communication out. And this first piece is about some homeowners. We just recently, I believe it was 2 Saturdays ago, there was other means of communication out. And this first piece is about homeowners. We just recently, I believe it was 2 Saturdays ago, there was other means of communication out. And this piece here, homeowners. just brought a couple of pieces of information to show you. This is an example of an ad that has run in the Bennington banner. So in addition to all the communication that John Shanahan at the BBC and Matt Harrington at the Chamber are doing to help increase the awareness, we're also doing print advertising, as I mentioned, John Shanahan with TV as well. Matt Harrington at the Chamber. This piece here is, this was circulated to mobile home owners regarding just some high-level energy efficiency tips that they can do to their mobile home. We are working on, these are just an example, but some window decals that businesses can place in their windows to show the partnership with the BBC and the Chamber, as well as Efficiency Vermont window decals. So that is a quick overview of everything that has, very quick snapshot of everything that has happened in the last 5 or so months, and some activities that are soon to come. So that is a quick overview of everything that has, very quick snapshot of everything that has happened.
How do you measure the success of your activities here? How do you measure your results so that you say, all right, this was successful, or this we could have done better, or we exceeded expectations, or did we here?
Yep, so this is, we don't really have, there isn't, we have succeeded here. This is a pilot program, so Bennington and Randolph are, there isn't, so this is absolutely right out of the gate, just by creating awareness, that's success. And as you can see here, the results speak for themselves of what happened in 3 months already. And right out of the gate, all these walkthroughs, there's a tremendous awareness that has been created about Efficiency Vermont that we hope to continue. So these results, this is success. And all these wonderful partnerships that we've developed in the community, we're trying to educate landlords, we're trying to educate these realtors, getting them the information that they need. So there's been, the awareness pieces, we're trying to educate.
Based on your success, when does this move from pilot to full-fledged ongoing program?
We will, if it moves to full-fledged program,
Based on your success, when does
our
this
next 2
move
towns
from pilot
are
to
Hartford and Barry, and then after that we have Virgins. If it will be evaluating after that. Full-fledged program,
Based on your success, when does
our next
this
2
move
towns
from pilot
are
to
Hartford and Barry, and then after that we have Virgins. Efficiency Vermont does.
Great, okay, I'm not on Facebook, but a lot of people are, so.
Based on your success, when does this move from
What was the response to the Spear LED light bulb project? I'm just curious. Okay, I'm not on response with so far.
Sure. So unfortunately, we got a little bit of a late start to the outreach. When I was one of the last Bennington days, it was a week or 2 ago that I was here in the community, and I took that most of the morning to outreach to all those schools, and most of it was just getting it through the front desk, getting the person that would be in charge of most of the fundraising activity outreach to school, and then I'm going to follow up in a couple of weeks because it's challenging. It was a week before school got out, so.
And the other thing is, so they can continue and maybe not lose momentum, are there plans to somehow, even though you're physically leaving, what's the plan to kind of keep you on the front burner?
Sure. So in some of these pieces here, we can certainly look at continuing, print advertising. We've already developed these relationships with the UC and the Chamber, so continuing to have those continue, we can certainly look at advertising. We can continue to come down here and do site visits. It's really whatever is needed in the community to help. It just, we are not, like you said, physically going to be here. Continue to come down here and do site visits. It's really, so there'll be many other, and that's where we're open to suggestions. Things that have worked, things that haven't worked. Are there other activities that folks would like to have? So there'll be many other, and that's where we're open to continue this great awareness and this great things that haven't worked. Started, so we're open to activities that folks would like to have. There'll be many other, and that's where we're open to continue this great awareness and this great things that haven't. So I'm really happy to start here.
I am very excited that you're working with multifamily rentals and also with mobile homes. Do you have any sense? I am very excited. Your response rate from Bennington was before you started this initiative. So do you have? So I think it's following up on my first question. Do you have any relief? I know some of the landlords said, they were already working with you, so do you know what the increase is?
I don't have any relief that I know the information was
I know some of the landlords said, they were already working with you, so do you know what the
I think that would be great. And I'm wondering, do you have, in terms of mobile home outreach, so it sounds like you've already had some success because you get a lot of LEDs.
Yep, they did 200
And I'm
of
wondering,
them, and I
does
believe there's
have,
another
in terms
200
of mobile
to
home
come as well
outreach,
in the next.
so it sounds like you've already had some success. Do you have particular goals beyond the LED lights that you want to see happen and how back out? So it sounds like you've already had some success. Do you
That I would have
particular goals?
to get back to you on. My coworker Paul Markowitz leads that initiative. I just happen to be aware of it because of its activity in Bennington. I can't speak to all the details of it, but I know there's ongoing communication to assist mobile homes. So absolutely great. Thank you. Get back to you on my coworker, but I know there's ongoing
Just a couple.
communication to assist.
It sounds like the torch is being passed to the town, that, you're continuing your work. And I'd sort of like maybe to get Dan's input relative, sounds like, possibly bring some of this into our code scenarios and our building permit process so that we have something to step up. Sounds like with possibly just some of this into our, look for efficiency in scenarios and our construction and permit process and rehabilitation. We have something to step up. Is it something we could look at, or is the pie in the sky? Look for efficiency in scenarios and our construction and permit process and rehabilitation. Is it something we could look at, or is the pie in the sky? Look for efficiency in
certify a new renovation or a new project to certify that they complied. So we're already pushing that agenda. I met with Jeannie and some other folks recently, Jim Godine, and we have a big meeting there. We're going to be getting back together. I hope in the near future. We're already pushing that agenda. They were going to have Jeannie and some others going to try to put together some Jim Godine, and we have a big meeting there. Meetings where we're going to get realtors, bankers, developers, contractors to try to see if we can try to really push the information out about that. Meetings with realtors, bankers, rural developers. We're seeing kind of where it's not happening as much trying to be as a residential level information department. And so realtors, that's how it works. We're seeing kind of
because I'd hate to see this pilot project become a pilot and then go on the shelf if there is some benefit to the community, and we'd like to keep, there is potential to move it through to another level. That makes sense. Otherwise, why do you do these exercises if they come and they go? Was there anything within our municipal government that we've adopted any of the energy saving efficiency Vermont practices and recommendations? Have we provided any to our? Was there anything within our municipal government that we've adopted? I'd like to help, our offices, our efficiency this building here. What is efficiency Vermont done, or maybe not done, or maybe anything?
I believe specific to this building, and I'd be happy to double check for you, but I think we supported some lighting here. I'm not entirely sure. Are you asking generally?
I'm generally, yes. I'm not, I don't know
I'd be happy to
LED
double
lighting
check for you.
other than my home.
Some lighting here.
Has there been some activity within the
Are you asking
town to adopt some of these not really good practices? And maybe you're not the one to respond, maybe it's Dan or Stu. Has there been some, please, somebody, I hate to be out here pounding, adopt some of these not
Keith,
really
too,
good
at
practices.
Hammers Grotto,
You're not the
experience,
one to
some
respond,
of the
maybe it's
commercial
Dan or
walkthroughs.
Stu. Has there been some, please, somebody, I hate to be out here pounding, adopt some of these not really good practices.
Experience, some of the commercial.
our facilities director.
Please, somebody, I hate to be out here pounding, adopt
Very intimately aware of our actions from the I think sometimes to call folks our facilities director.
somebody.
I know about things. So all of our buildings, we look very carefully at energy efficiency. We were the first large community in the state to go all LED streetlights. Know about it. So all of our buildings, we look very carefully at energy efficiency. We were the first large community in the state to go. Every project we do, I know that Mark and Larry look at all of our building efficiency very carefully. Now we try to think we were the head to see how we're going to save money. Every project we do, I know
Great,
that Mark.
thanks, Dan. That's certainly responsive. Any other questions for Megan tonight? If not, thank you for all the effort, time, and lights that you've turned on for us.
Well, I
Any
think
other
the biggest thank you
questions
goes
for
out to all the partners that have been involved, the town,
Thank you for all
BBC,
the
the chamber,
effort, time,
and many
lights
folks
that
here
you've
that have
turned
made
on for
this
us.
happen, because that's
Any
what
other
it's about. Biggest thank you goes getting the word out, having all these meetings happening, and creating a chamber around it, which is many folks here that have made this happen, because
And give
that's what it is.
my best to Ms. Gamache.
Getting the word out, having all these meetings happening, and creating a chamber around it, which is many.
The next item on our agenda is the BBC presentation from John Shanahan. I think you're gearing up for that. Maybe before we step up on our agenda, could you just give us some background relative to John Shanahan, the Better Bennington Corporation, gearing up for that tax district, maybe how this all has come together over the years? Could you just give us some background relative
Sure.
to
Taxing district, and I couldn't tell you the exact date, was formed back at least a decade ago, perhaps more. It was originally a 2-year attempt with a sunset form back requiring a second public vote. It was a charter amendment to the existing town charter that allowed the municipality to tax the commercial entities within an identified district. And I've provided you all with a map that shows that district as it currently stands, and it is shown in green on the map. We also overlaid the National Historic Register District currently stands, as well as the Design Review District, because there are all slight differences in those historic districts. The map that was adopted was changed several years ago to add the Catamount School properties, or former Catamount School properties, to the Downtown Improvement District. All of the changes that we make in the map have to go north to the Downtown District. So if you read the charter, the map of the changes that we make in the map requires a public vote. Once approved, it's much like any charter change. It has to be approved up north. Requires a public vote because we don't act. Once approved, it will state like all of our authority flows from the state. So requires a public vote because we don't act. But over the years, the district has when it was first adopted was a relatively close vote. The second, over the years, 2 years, it passed overwhelmingly. When it was first people had seen the benefits of it. The original BBC was not the original downtown corporation. People had seen the benefits of it. John will tell us when BBC came into play. BBC was not the original. But we've always had an organization that we have contracted with to provide the Main Street experience, and we have that gains us certain advantages for grant monies and for those kinds of things. It also gains us certain advantages, puts us on a national grant money as a downtown, those kinds of things, complies with the national Main Street. Also, experience puts us on a national grant. We this year approved $74,000 some odd dollars as part of our commitment to the BBC. This year, their overall budget ranges twice that some odd dollars. So we are not the sole source funding for the BBC or any of the downtown entities that have existed in the past. So we are not. We have come to a place now where, over the years, the town has taken some of the burden from the BBC, such as Bennington and Bloom used to share those costs. Over the years, the town has taken some of the burden from the BBC. Early on, the BBC was supplying some of the downtown furnishings. We now do all of that. Because that's really not the role for the downtown advocacy groups. That's the role for government. And so we have taken over those entities. That's really not the BBC to, I think, expand their offerings and some of their opportunities. And so we have taken over ourselves here today as an organization that's been around for our opportunities. And so we have taken over ourselves here today as an organization that's been around for our opportunities. So it's a long time relationship that the town has had with the BBC. And I would think from our perspective of fairly successful installation, GBC. And based in law, I would think from our perspective fairly successful. There are, in order to change what we do or how we do it, would require a charter change, and that is a process that requires at least in order to change a March vote, and it's sent to the legislature. and the legislature, at least recently, has changed March vote, pretty much been accepting charter changes unless there's something really egregious in the charter change that flies in the face of state law, such as there was a city that tried to adopt some sort of gun legislation in the state of Vermont, such as controls a city that tried to charter change. So if we stay within the context of the downtown improvement district, we can do very well. And I think, every once in a while, we probably should look at this and see whether or not the area should be expanded, or perhaps the duties and responsibilities. Every once in a while, we probably should look at
That's helpful.
see whether or
Because
not
one of the questions I was going to follow up with, that you answered right at the end, is the, expansion of the existing district. That's helpful. It's been historically the same. One of the questions I was going to follow up with, that you answered right at the end, broader, expansion, broader of the existing district footprint, historically the same, that would not violate any of the broader downtown designations that we have. The same thing.
And that's it is an interesting question, Tom, because the improvement district right now mirrors the downtown designation. It is an interesting question, Tom, because I think the state has an opportunity to weigh in if we try to expand our taxing district too far. It is an interesting question. The state may object. The state has an opportunity to weigh in. We can't justify that our reasons for the expansion are truly related to downtown investment in downtown. So we can't justify that going forward and expanding the district, but I think certainly there are opportunities out there. And we have businesses that are outside the district who'd like to be a part of going forward, which is nice. And expanding the district, but I think certainly there are opportunities.
Spread the tax base.
And we have businesses that are outside the district who'd like to be able to do that. And expanding the district, but I think there are
spread the tax base.
Anything that we do, I think that improves the district and benefits the community. There are
For now, it's good.
anything that we do, I think that
And I'm receiving some text that there's still volume problems at home. So before I start, I just wanted to say that we're going to be working with Cash TV to film this in its entirety in an expanded version. So that before I start, I just wanted to say that so that if they can't hear this, they'll be able to entirety in an expanded version.
Is that the case, Mike, right now, or how we doing?
So that if they can't hear this, heard.
Is that the case, Mike, right now, or how we doing?
So that if they can't hear this, heard.
Is that the case, Mike, right now? If we turn them off, would that be helpful?
That's right. Heard.
Oh, thank you, Mike. If we turn them off, would that be helpful?
Thanks for allowing me to come here tonight. Just want to recap why we're here. A few weeks ago, maybe. Thanks for allowing me to come here tonight. 25th, 6th, or 7th. We received a phone call from Ed Damon, a reporter with the Berkshire Eagle Bennington Banner, who said that he's been up here spending more time phone call from and noticed all the activity on Main Street. Excuse me. Said that he was seeing some social media and noticed all the negativity on Main Street. He felt there was some kind of disconnect between he was seeing on social media and what he was seeing on Main Street. And I believe he contacted the town of Bennington first, who referred him to me. And so I met with that, and the conversation started. He contacted over that top first there why he was here. And then he said, just so I met, what is the conversation started percentage down top first compared to today as it was 3 years ago. And we got into a long conversation why occupancy really doesn't mean anything compared to number today as it was. And a few of those reasons are, and we got into a long why we don't track it. We don't track it at the state or the national level. There's too many factors can affect the vacancy without any economic why we don't track it. New building, current, like it's a Dollar General. It adds to the inventory. Plus, opening a business won't change the occupancy. Current, like buildings, which is the trend now to go smaller. So places like the old Star Electric business cut in two. So where one spot is a Dollar General, now to go smaller. So places like the old Star Electric business, the Chittenden cut in two drive-through. So where that is now in a few offices, but 5-6 years ago it didn't even exist on the radar because it was just Chittenden cut out drive-through. of the bank itself. Now, so the inventory changes along with 5-6 years ago occupancy, so the vacancy rate really doesn't give you any real tangible information, so it's not something we track or are asked to. So the vacancy rate really doesn't give what we are asked to track are Main Street reinvestment statistics. The Main Street reinvestment statistics are a lot of information. Main Street investment statistics, 90% of which we agree with that we think is reinvestment usable. We disagree with some where they're missing some key information. 90% that we look at as a board to look at the economic vitality. We disagree with some where they're missing in the statistics. 90% that we because they're not really usable. However, the statistics were based on guidelines of the National Trust for Historic Preservation, which is where Main Street America. However, the statistics were based on guidelines of the National Trust. BBC is a member of Main Street America. However, and to remain a member, one of the requirements is to submit these statistics to Vermont, who in turn submits them to national. Real quickly, I think some of our frustration was we submit all these numbers and it's a lot of paperwork on a quarterly basis, and we never really get any information back. Some of our frustration was we submit all this Bennington standards or economy standard basis. What they do is they just track national trends in the downtown districts throughout the country. And there is about 2,600 communities throughout the country that track this information. As you can see, most of it in the East Coast. So some of it means something, some of it doesn't. This information, as you can see, most of it in the East Coast. What we do in Bennington, some of it means give you a little bit about where I come up with some information for these statistics. There's guidelines they've set that what we do in Bennington, why even our board level, we don't really use it. But up on the screen now is the exact designated district, including the new addition a few years ago of the Vermont Soccer Academy, which used to be a school. When they ask me the information, they want to know this list here: public investment, which is any municipal street jobs; private investment, any work on facades or other indoor building rehabilitations, even HVAC; any new construction like Dollar General; public improvement projects, like we're currently in a project right now with the park. Then they ask us how many businesses open, public improvement projects, moved in, moved out. And when they say moved in and moved out, they mean, then they ask us starting in Bennington and moving either into the designated district or out of the district to anywhere else on earth. Plus, we have to count housing, volunteer hours, and special events. When I was talking with Ed, he really specifically wanted to know, like, that you track the numbers of who opens, moves in, and moves out. So I showed him one of our reporting forms, which are very hard to read. So I broke down and just showed him how I keep my notes to track who moves in, who closes, who opens. And I put a little form together like this for him. And I said the records I had in my current file still on my desk went back to 2010. So for an example, if a building or a business like when Anytime Fitness opened in 2010, I would put it into that category. Ramontos, to that category. Old Castle Theater Company was in Bennington but moved into the downtown district, so they went into that category. 802 Marketing began and grew in the district but outgrew the district, so they moved to the airport, so I had to list them as moved out of the district. And this goes on and on. The reason I added TJ's Fish Fry right there, that's an anomaly like the percentage has. When I have to file my reports, I have to file per quarter. Business that opened, business that closed, moved in, moved out. And in TJ's situation, he opened. A year later, he closed it for a year and a half and reopened it. I had to count him twice. And that's for the national trend, which opened, and they track economic changes. And the only time you wouldn't separately track someone opening and closing is if they do it every year seasonal. So like a ski resort, they close every year, or even TJ's. If he just closed for the winter, I wouldn't count him as closing, but he closed for a full season. So even that, and I think that's the only anomaly in this list. But once I put all the businesses that open, I throw the notes in my file. At the end of the quarter, I have the list so I don't have to sit there and think about what I'm filing. When I met with Ed, showing him all my notes was kind of confusing, so we created this little chart so I can show him, here are the businesses that opened in 2010, 11, 12, so it's like a 6.5-year period. And half is because since 2016, we've had 5 that came into the district. Since the newspaper article hit, we've received a lot of calls saying, isn't there more to the story? Is this all you do to track economic vitality? And I was like, absolutely not, because even this doesn't really tell the picture. What tells the picture better than this is, I'm jumping ahead. So we track how many open, how many closed or moved out. We do a net gain or loss, so there's like a 6-7-year history, or 6.5-year history right there. We track it. Those numbers, it's a net gain of 30-something. Still doesn't paint a picture that we could use or why. And literally 500 businesses could open and 502 close. Sounds like a lot of activity, but it doesn't mean anything positive. So these numbers are just part of a bigger picture of tracking what's going on.
Before you leave that, John, how often do you have to file a report, and with whom? And
every quarter with the Vermont State Downtown Program up in Montpelier. And
Vermont State what, John?
The Vermont Main Street Program, Vermont Downtown Program. Gary Holloway is the chair of that division, who I report to. He gathers it. There's 23 communities in the state that are one level of designation or another. And I'm going to say he submits them on to national. However, the National Main Street Program over the past year is kind of changing its focus also. It's part of the National Trust for Historic Preservation. However, the Main Street Program is seeing less alignment with historic preservation than it is with economic development. So there's a little bit of a separation. Like the state of Vermont's not even a member of the National Trust for Historic Preservation anymore. Individually, we can be Main Street members if we feel there's a benefit for it. We still follow the format, the 4-point approach of the Main Street program. But we, in those numbers that the national program used to use, state level they still use, and then they track it amongst themselves nationwide. But that's a change that's in process right now, and our board adopted one of the future changes in advance, just we see it coming, and that's annual work plan format.
And again, you haven't gotten to this yet, but the benefit of providing or being involved with the state program, what are the benefits other than the activity that you have to
I mean, that the town of Bennington adopted the program?
Yep.
I didn't bring the list. I guess
highlight.
To the municipality, funding is available for certain things. If you have a designated program with a full-time employee, and there's different levels of designations now too, village centers, to bring some communities like Wilmington into the fold that aren't large enough for a full program. But it does open up, and on our website is a list of 12 to 15 benefits that are available to the municipality or businesses or building owners within the district since we have a designated program.
If there was a substantial redevelopment of a portion of downtown, would there be some benefit to having that designation? Could there be some benefit to that redevelopment activity?
Yeah, tax credits mostly.
Okay.
Which can be substantial if you're talking a large development project.
John, I've got a question for you with respect to this Gary Holloway, he's responsible for the accreditation.
The accreditation of the BBC?
Yeah.
No, that's actually a national thing. It's the Trust for Historic Preservation Main Street program. Accreditation really doesn't mean anything. It's not like we get an award or any funding for it. It's just about 8 to 10 guidelines.
Right.
And if we follow them, we become accredited.
So, I'm sure you're well aware, and people of Bennington should know that there have been accusations leveled at you with respect to the National Main Street Center program, and that somehow we're no longer accredited there. Can you answer that?
Yeah. Well, like I said, the Vermont Downtown and the Historic Trust for Preservation are kind of splitting ways, where the Vermont Downtown program doesn't see as much value for the cost of being a member of the Trust for Historic Preservation, but we can still follow the Main Street program. I submit to the state all of our statistics, along with reports on how we work with the Chamber, the Town of Bennington, the Economic Development Partner, the other economic partners. I have to have 4 full committees plus a full board, and I submit all that to the state. They submit to national, and like if you open up the national page right now, it still shows 8 of us in Vermont as being accredited programs.
To be more specific, the allegations that are made is that Gary Holloway of the Downtown Designation Program reported that the state of Vermont withdrew from the National Main Street Center program. And, the allegations go further, John, to say that you boasted that we were still a part of this program as late as this past, I believe it was March, April, or May.
All right. And
So are we a
Mike
part
wants
of
to
this?
answer that. First of all, and I don't want to get into semantics, but accreditation is really nothing to boast about, so there's no way in the world I would have boasted about something that really
Well,
doesn't
are we a
mean
part of this
much.
program or not?
Are we part of the Main Street program? Yes.
Okay, so we're still accredited.
We were, like, my receipt that hangs on my wall is 2015. We received our accreditation for 2015. Going forward, if the Main Street program separates from the Trust for Historic Preservation, that piece of paper won't be coming in the mail. We will still follow the guidelines, only because they're good standards to set for an organization. But Michael
So
Harrington...
you're saying outright that
go ahead.
these-
Okay, let's not get into a dialogue here. Yes, hold it. I'm
the question
actually
is.
the chair of this meeting, and I'll continue to be. So this is a presentation tonight. We're not going to get into this back and forth. If you want to talk about something after, but I think I've heard John say that right now you're a member of that designation.
Good, that's what I want.
That's, and no more,
Oh,
no
without a
less.
doubt. And Michael Harrington just spoke with Gary at the conference, and I think wanted to add something to it.
I was just going to let you know of a conversation I had. So our downtown designation comes out of the Office for Economic and Community Development. So we renew that designation every 5 years. The conversation I had with Gary at the conference last Friday was simply that the cost for each state to belong to the National Main Street Program as a certifying entity became too high for the state of Vermont. So Vermont pays the same certification entity fee as California, as Texas, as New York, and so those fees continue to rise. So the state of Vermont has decided not to be the certifying entity anymore, which is where the certificate program came from for all the sub-communities within the state of Vermont. So the state of Vermont continues to be a member of the downtown, Main Street Downtown program. The BBC will continue to be a member of the Main Street program, but Vermont as a state will no longer be certifying its individual downtowns like some other states do. It doesn't necessarily impact their membership, it's just the state is choosing not to provide that certification anymore due to cost. So the involvement with the National Main Street program does not change.
Okay, you're carrying on a little bit too long, too.
No, we can still, on a local level, be a member of the Main Street program outside of the state of Vermont. I certainly wouldn't do it for a slip of paper that I think last year they emailed to me. But at any rate,
Let's move on.
I got a question that I want to ask just relative to that last slide.
I can't go back to the slides. The computer just died.
That's okay. Is there a metrics that's tracked one step further down from net loss of businesses
to net loss of jobs within those businesses? Is that tracked? Is there a number affiliated with that?
Jobs are tracked too, and when I submit those, like the numbers I submit now are 99% accurate. Since that story came out, I've had calls from offices asking me if I included them, which I never had. They can come and go second or third floor sometime without us even knowing. But I give it our best. I mean, we're out there on the street all the time. As far as jobs go, we estimate, like if Owl's Nest opened up, we counted it as one job, the owner. She has a partner and then a family member. I never upped it to 3, now that it went from 1 to 3. So those numbers, we really don't use those. We submit them. Here is our best estimate at jobs, yeah.
So there's no physical census that takes place? You don't contact the employer and ask
No.
for, okay.
No, and if we came up with a real usable reason to use it, we would, but so much time goes into these reports as it is, and we don't even use some of this information. But further along in the presentation, I'll tell you things that they don't even ask for that we use more because we think it's a better telling story of what's going on locally.
Go ahead, John.
So that's how we report the numbers. And what they don't ask, what I'd like to ask, and I think it's because we have a personal relationship with our members, is why they close. And Diane, who works in my office, and I unfortunately look at each other and say, you know, we know usually, I think, 3 to 6 months, sometimes even before the owner, when that business isn't going to be there. We can see the signs of historically what happens to businesses before they end up closing. Economy, maybe half the time is the reason, but a lot of time it's moving, health issues.
Have you lost connection with the
I did, I lost power.
Okay.
I'm sorry. There's no more pictures anyway, so it's all just lists. The reasons they close is what means something to me. If it's a health issue, like right now we're dealing with a business who by the end of the year we don't think will be there. They're going to be closed in the next couple of weeks, for a few weeks. Going to be closed for a few weeks in November, and then they'll make a decision whether to continue on or not, and it's health reasons. Divorces, moving, I mean, the list goes on and on, why people, retirement, they're done. Some of them are just, they're not making it.
John,
yes, sir.
since you raised that, when you hear this or you anticipate or you get this, you know, this in the inter-office dialogue, is that a cue to go and talk with the business relative to what are the concerns, what that we can do as a community, what are the resources that might be directed to them, or is there a safety net that's thrown anywhere?
Sort of. Ultimately, it's on their lap in their responsibility to survive. What we do, if we know someone is having a hard time, if it's a financial reason or a business reason, is invite them in, sit down, and try to pinpoint, is it a certain day of the week? Is it a certain product line? Is it the way they're doing business and the world is changing? Is it finances? And is it employees? The list goes on and on and on for financial reasons. And the first thing we do is set up an appointment with the Small Business Development Center to redo their business plan, or oddly enough, do it for the first time in some cases, to readjust for what's happening. And then we look at each individual segment. Is it you're no longer open on Sundays and you used to be, and that cut into 18% of your income compared to last year? Your payroll costs are too high. You're now in competition. Someone else opened up. What needs to change? And some business owners make all those changes and climb back out of it. Some can't or don't. And that's the cycle. I mean, a lot of businesses come, like we saw, and a lot of businesses go. People are in business for the wrong reason, or the market isn't there to support what they're doing in some cases. But the business plan is how we, if it's a new business, we're not even going to take you on the street or introduce you to landlords until you have a business plan done. That's almost a guaranteed indicator that they'll be much more successful than if they start off with their eyes closed.
That seems like a real a good approach. I'm just wondering if there is sort of like a going out of business exit interview discussions so that we can gain from the reasons and come up with...
Yeah, and I think, and Tom, I didn't finish, and I'm sorry.
Okay, no.
I stopped with the Vermont Small Business Development Center.
That's what the cue was.
But I said, thanks. We also refer them to the town of Bennington, who has some financial resources. And then they go through, they go through the ringer with the town as well. If it looks like a temporary issue, if it looks like they'll commit to changing their entire business model to where it could be financially solvent again, then the town can step up and support them and get them through whatever changes they have to make. I would say the majority of the time, as humans, we do the way we know how to do things, and we get into a pattern of doing it. So if there's a lot of bad habits, they don't always change, and it's a slow, steady decline, even though there's a lot of resources there to help them and want to help them and try to help them. From us, the Chamber, small business, the town of Bennington, sometimes it just can't work out.
Thanks. Good.
But in other situations, it has worked out. I'm going to move on to my next slide here. And as I was talking about different indicators, one being not so much the numbers, they really don't mean anything, it's why. Why are they moving to downtown or to Bennington? What efforts have we taken that made that happen? And and the same with our partners. Why did somebody come to Bennington? And speaking of that, it's one of the indicators that the national programs never ask for, and we track, and I'm sorry I see you flipping, it's just the one that has the gift garden on the sheet, the next page, is properties that, in businesses that change hands, that owners have been able to market and sell. And about between 10 and 7 years ago, there was probably only 1 or 2 businesses that were even able to be sold. If somebody wanted to wrap it up, they just closed the doors. But as you can see by the list, in the last 6 or 7 years, the Gift Garden, the South Street Cafe, 305 South, the Bennington Bookshop, Bringing You Vermont, Will's Insurance, Ramonto's, Adams Lock and Security, are all businesses that people were successfully able to market and sell to new owners. What does that say? Right there, all of those new owners saw Bennington and downtown Bennington as a viable place to invest their time, their money, and believe that they can be successful. Oddly enough, National doesn't ask that, but we track it because it's definitely a sign that it's very different than it was 10 years ago when people were were having a very unsuccessful time trying to sell businesses. Some of the places we jump in is the Gibney building was recently sold to an individual out of Massachusetts who saw the Gibney building on our online inventory. We list the buildings, local realtor contacts, the sizes, the uses, and as he was looking through the internet for a place to move his business, which is currently down in Massachusetts, he came upon this. He set up an appointment with the realtor, ended up buying the building. He's currently renovating the building. He's moving his business here. It won't be until fall. His second floor will be his residence, and the third floor will be rental. So that's one of the smaller ways that we can play a role. Other organizations or realtors also have listings, but we do one just for all the properties downtown. Another indicator is the length of time that people have been in business. And this is one that's always been kind of frustrating to me when I hear around town, oh, you can't do business in Bennington, and it's too hard of a place to go. And I was like, okay, that's fine. Just don't say that in front of Jay and Jones Windenberg, who are celebrating 45 years, or the Shaft brothers, who even have them beat. But it goes on, if you think about it, length of businesses in Bennington are Jay's, and these are just a few examples, so, and I'm sorry, I know I'm leaving businesses off, but Jay's, Shafts, Evans News, Armstrong Jewelers, Moulton Spectacle Shop, Bennington Pizza, Mexican Connection, Bennington Station Restaurant, The Pharmacy, Faller's Music, Your Belly's Deli, The Clip Shop. They were all here before I was here in '82. And I think if you think back, we always remember them always being there. So those are long-standing successful businesses. So the argument that downtown is not a viable platform to run a successful business does not stand with these business owners or many others. This certainly doesn't stand with me. The real picture, and the one that I think answers some of the inquiries we got about what's next, and okay, those were nice numbers in the banner, but what else can we add to that story, is some of the things I brought up tonight as the real indicators. But I think the real important story is the future of downtowns. We all know back when there were cable cars, there was only one place to shop, and that's when some people literally still remember the streets being packed with people, because we didn't have a choice. Along came the strip malls, then the big malls, then the big box stores, and now the internet. There is no competing for convenience and price shopping on the internet. This is what we talk with our merchants downtown all the time about, or even the big box stores that have unlimited inventory to choose from. So what is going to set their business apart from the competition? What's going to separate downtown from the competition? And that's experience. It's a word we've been using for a couple of years now. And within the last few months, I realized all downtowns are using it, to the point they've adopted the word experiential is the future of downtowns. Well, we think this is the big enemy right now. There's something behind this in another few years that we're unaware of. But one thing that will never be able to compete with downtown is just enjoying being in your center of your community. The events, the activities, things like the chocolate shop that does Fantastic Fridays, live equity theater downtown, the Vermont Arts Exchange bringing performances downtown, Naps opening up their arcade and their performance spot, restaurants, brew pubs, coffee shops. Bennington has a lot of those ingredients and more. To the point we were talking today, I showed somebody that big green map, and they said, John, why don't you just fill in the businesses and tell people you're building a new mall? How exciting it would be to see a bakery, a bookshop, a candy shop, a barber shop, coffee shops, restaurants, nightclubs, all in one building. And that's really what downtown Bennington is. The disconnect is what downtown really is and what the public perception out there is. And a lot of that is damaged by the trash that's on social media that gets into people's heads who don't come downtown anyways. They don't support locally owned businesses. They don't dine in the restaurants. They just complain that there's a lot of stuff that isn't downtown when in fact it really is. And those businesses do get a lot of local support. And in the conversations of what people are seeing on social media, in these shops, they're like, well, why aren't they down here if they don't think it's here? And anecdotally, like Jay's and Evans, where people will walk in and say, oh, this is a nice place, how long have you been here? And they want to drag them over the counter, and they're like, we were here before you were born. It just shows how much some people really don't participate in their community. So at any rate, leaving note, or the closing note would be that the BBC, working with the merchants, our focus now is arts, culture, and all the experiences that each and every business can bring to downtown. Focusing around events like First Fridays, where everybody stays open late, everybody has activities, and it just makes a fun place to be. The BBC doesn't own 1 square inch downtown. We don't own a business. We just know that we can work with the town, with the chamber, with the town departments, highway and building, and make downtown a fun, comfortable, safe, enjoyable place to be. We attack litter, we attack graffiti, we work on all the outside streetscape with the town. Currently working on the project to bring a new park to downtown. And those are the things that we want downtown to be a place everybody wants to be, even if all the shops were closed. And then it's up to the merchants to take those people from the streets and bring them into the stores. Short story long, I'm famous for it.
To continue the discussion, just maybe getting away with some of the numbers, BBC is a membership organization under contract with the town to provide these services. As I understand it, the members vote and make decisions and the like. The members are not necessarily just those in the downtown district at this point, right? So I mean, you could be a member and have and be a member living in Old Bennington.
Absolutely.
Yep.
In California.
In what?
In California. Our
Yeah,
favorite
right.
member lives
Exactly.
out in California.
Yeah, got it. Or wherever. If the district were expanded, that's one sort of like open that possibility. What about changing the BBC to allow, or to actually everyone that is in the district would automatically become a member of the BBC? Then, become more democratic, which I hear is one of the concerns.
It's hard, and I wish I brought a copy of our matrix for our membership. Here's the deal. We're not just a membership, and I'm going to use the chamber for no reason other than to use the chamber. The chamber, you're either a member or you're not. BBC, if I am a property owner within the district, I pay into the taxing district, which supports the BBC. Everyone who owns property in the district is automatically a member because they're a landowner in the district. And if Jeannie is a property owner in the district and leases out space to Michael Keene, who is now a business owner in the district, Michael can become a member as a business member.
But it's not automatic. The only one that's automatic is the owner, quote unquote.
Yep.
And they become a voting member of the.
Absolutely.
BBC.
And there's different things. And like a business owner is probably the largest beneficiary of things that we're able to do. Property owner, it's helping market the property. Keeping downtown is safe, viable, clean, so that the property values stay up, and then helping them fill their locations. Business owners, like when we bring big events downtown, do activities, do our coffee connections, all of that, and our closest working relationship is definitely with the business owners. Mm-hmm. Outside of the district, we have people who are members, and I say to them, there's not a lot I can do for you other than maybe hand out your menus in the downtown visitor center, but they see value in a well-maintained and vibrant downtown where they just want to support it, just to keep supporting the movement of downtown now.
Sure. I mean, if they wanted to, they can come to the annual meetings and make their voices known about the BBC.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And like our coffee connection, I guess, is something kind of new. We've had 3 or 4 of them where the members can come in face-to-face. I think our biggest communication tool is one-on-one. And Diana and I are just always on the street. And we do 90% of our communicating literally on a sidewalk. We know everybody kind of personally. And so we know what it is they need. And some of the things are out of the scope of what we can actually do. We just direct them to resources that could be better at helping them.
You heard the discussion from Stu relative to the district now. Would that have any flavor relative to expanding the district to get more, as more of a tax base for one thing, for the town?
Yeah, and there is a section of town, the Four Corners North. I've been meeting with them, or I've met with them, we haven't met in a while, about including them in the downtown district. First meeting was, what do you think that means, is my question to them, and what benefit could it bring to the Four Corners North? Their first comment was streetscape. The period lighting with wires all going behind the building so that it looks like Main Street. So the furnishings, because they like the look of Main Street that starts at the pharmacy. They don't like it as much as where they are. And they have a lot of retail businesses up there now that they would like to give it more of a Main Street look. I told them they can do that without me, but for me to be their liaison, they would have to provide some kind of funding to BBC, because all I'm doing is taking my time and effort out of the district, who is supporting the efforts that we're supposed to do. To include them, some of those tax credits that I was talking about don't apply to a lot of those businesses up there. A few it would. So good and bad, and I'm not sure where that will even end up, but we've also talked with businesses on the east end of town who would also like to be part of the downtown district. The designated district starts at specific points. However, the BBC, because we market downtown, look at downtown bigger than the designated district. For example, it ends at La Flamme's on the west end of town, but when we do any outside work, any outside programs, we go up between the church and the museum, depending on what we're doing, as a very important entry point to downtown. We do the same with Four Corners North. That is the visual entry point for a lot of people to downtown. So we work them into our events now with shuttles and coordinating plans and programs. East end of town, especially with Stewart's moving closer, it's building it up a little bit thicker, where the visual entryway to the east end of town is spreading out also. The only clear entry point into the business district is on the southern end, where our office is. It's 305 South, Friendly's, 210 South, and our office. After that, it goes strictly residential, so it's a really defined area. Everything else, we kind of keep that entry point view when we're making decisions or planning projects.
Just one final one before I let you run to the other, my colleagues. How many folks attended Mayfest this year?
Well, we don't charge for any of our events.
Yeah, but you have some kind of a...
Trash. When you have a roll-off dumpster, this is from like a national event organizers, is a full dumpster is 10,000 people. So unfortunately, even that's hard to judge, because that's based on an event that's out in a field somewhere where that's all you have for trash. We have, 37 stores that have barrels and restaurants, and barrels on the streets as well. We do leave them empty when it's done. We have crews that throw everything in the dumpster. So we'll just say 10,000. It's an average. This year was really nice crowds, especially early because of the heat. But our goal is like a 4-hour stay at Mayfest. So we give seating, shade, amenities, spaces to relax. But when it's 93 degrees, that is usually cut right in half. So like the vendor sales for food, especially, people don't have an appetite. So that many people staying for 4 hours appears a lot more crowded than the same amount of people staying for 2. And staying for 2 hours extra, you spend more money too. It was a very uncomfortable day, but we've been through that before, and it's better than the days that it was sleeting, so no complaints.
Other members have questions, thoughts, concerns?
Yeah, how many vendors did you have this year at Mayfest versus, let's say, last year? And in what year did you have the greatest number in the past 5 years? I want to know.
I don't know. I don't know the biggest number of vendors. This year, I think it was 116 vendors that took 127 vendor locations. The reason being, some take 2 or 3 spots. And I say 127 plus all the wonderful shops downtown, because they come out on the streets as well. But it's full. We now go to Valentine Street and all the vendor spots. It's as big as we can get.
So when a vendor buys 2 spots, the vendor is paying for 2 spots as though that person were 2 different vendors, or?
Well, they get a discount. If they
want.
want 2 spots, I'm going to say like 20% discount on the second spot. Food vendors pay the lion's share. Artisans pay the median, and local not-for-profits pay the lowest. And local not-for-profits are not allowed to sell items to compete with the vendors who are paying full price. They can hand out material, but they also have to have an activity so that it brings something to the show. Because we'll have like 20 not-for-profits, and if all they were doing is handing out pamphlets, we'd have an expo and we'd have 300 people there. But they all do like face painting, balloon animals, the rock wall, bouncy house, football toss. They all bring something to help make the event more interesting. And so they get the discount, we get activities, everybody wins, they get to share their message.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yes. Hi, John.
You might just disclose your position.
Yes, I'm president of the BBC. I have a question, John, about, I was surprised that we don't already collect data as a town on economic indicators, because it feels like it's something that would be useful. And I'm particularly interested in the indicators that are not just the straight numbers. And I'm wondering if, and this may already have been done, I'm wondering if, for instance, the BBC, the town, the chamber, merchants, anybody else that has insight into this, if there has been information gathered already about what might be economic indicators and also how this fits, or if it does, into the economic dashboard that the select board, the initiative that was started before Jean and I came on. It just seems like this is really timely because it feels like we're collecting a lot of information, and some of it sounds like it should be very useful. It is interesting to know how many businesses in the downtown have been there for long periods of time. It is interesting to know how many businesses are sold and so stay in the downtown with new owners. I mean, that feels like that should be a really important indicator, but I don't know if there is information out there that says, yes, these are the kinds of indicators that really mean something and that we should be tracking. But it feels like we should be doing this.
But can I throw in a warning?
I'm surprised that the State Department of Taxation doesn't have information like that should be readily available.
They may. I'm not going to speak with that. I'm just going to speak about my wonderful board of directors at the BBC who realize how much time it goes into me just doing the downtown district when there's so many other things you wish I was doing and I should be doing. And the value of that information, sometimes we use it, and it's interesting to know, and it helps us long-range, big-picture plan. If we were going to do that on a town-wide basis, obviously not the BBC, how much resources it would require to gather that.
Right. It'd be good to know what
else.
matters before
it would be
we spend
great
a lot of
to have
information and a lot of time gathering.
What a commitment to do that.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Well, maybe that's part of the scoreboard effort, that maybe we should be looking at that as what do we think matters and what do we not think, but what do we know matters?
Right.
And then figure out how we have resources allocated to get that information.
Because I'm thinking this is not, I mean, people, I'm thinking this is known. I just don't happen to know it.
And if you have to, every time you have to question, well, let's see, Jay's been there for 45 years and Will's agency, et cetera, you have to go almost anecdotally, and it would be much helpful, more helpful, I think, for the perception of you have that information right at hand. Mm-hmm. That's really good thought. Mm-hmm. But it's a question of prioritizing the need and the effort to get that answer.
And once you prioritize the need, it's not rocket science. There are databases around for this in the state, and I'm confident there are.
Well, I would want to encourage us to act on this, yeah.
John, you've explained this to me before, and but I'll ask you anyway because people might be interested in how the tax works in the downtown improvement district, and what the kind of scope and scale of that is a little bit to a business owner, in rough terms.
It's a percentage over what the rest of the grand list pays. The percentage, and I did not bring that information, nor did I even review it in the last couple of months, we haven't even requested an increase in up to 10 years. And because there's been growth in the district, getting the same flat amount has been dropping down for business owners because it's being spread on a wider basis. I think the percentage that they paid, I think was highest in like 2005 or 2006, and has been just decreasing because there's been a larger development in downtown that added to the tax base without adding to the amount.
Do I remember you told me that there's no tax on the second floors or the
Second floor, if it's only on commercial retail. So if it's second floor residential, the residential portion of properties does not get taxed. And that's off the grand list. That was done, I believe, when it was set up.
I think it all comes from Stu's office anyway, right? The determination of the tax rate basis.
Yeah, so Chief Assessor makes that determination, and it's all commercial uses and portions of the building are set into the grand list for the downtown improvement tax. So if you have residential uses in your building, you're not paying a tax based on that particular portion of your building.
Okay. Thank you.
We've talked, I think, this past year or two, if it's owner-occupied, we can see why that wasn't included, but we have talked about spreading out the base more evenly if it was rental units that do benefit from safe, clean, vibrant community. That means that it's more attractive of an apartment. Why isn't that included? It didn't go anywhere this year, but it's still there for us to look at down the road.
Jean.
As you were speaking, I was thinking about the marketing study that was part of the Greenberg redevelopment project, and I'm sure you were really interested in what that study illuminated. So anyway, I kept thinking about that, and I know they had done a market study on what was missing in town and what the community was lacking. And the other thing, I know this might not be exactly what you came to speak about, but do you have an update on the Pocket Park?
Yeah. Thanks for asking.
Is that okay, Tom?
Yeah, but we're
I'll bring it up.
pushing well into
Just
our
really
time.
I know, I'm sorry. I told Stu it'd be no longer than 15 minutes. Okay, so...
You're longer than 15 minutes, John.
Okay, good. Greenberg, the Bennington area townwide plan that illustrated the project that the BCRC completed for the Greenberg property. It was exciting in that we've known forever that we need more residential units downtown. Downtown is a lot of one-story buildings that replaced three-story buildings after fires. Can't do it anymore, and it's too bad it wasn't that way all along, because what we lack now is residential units above these buildings that not only have people on the streets downtown, but help financially support the property that houses the retail businesses on the first floor. The residential office space also, as the plan lays out, having more office workers downtown is also a benefit to the restaurants and shops. That
Yeah, let's not get into the
Yeah.
devil. I think it's a good observation, but I think again we're pushing the time. There are a couple folks that would like to just ask you a question, John. I don't want this to go on for more than 5 minutes until 7:30. So if you're going to have a question, just stand, identify yourself, and ask the question, and John will answer it if he has time, based upon my watch. Okay. So Mary, go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks for that presentation, John. It was really helpful. And this is just a clarification. I get the impression from the introduction from Stu and what transpired after that the BBC is sort of a quasi-governmental agency, is that correct? Because I know it's a nonprofit, but it's funded by the state and the county, is that right?
No, it's funded by the property owners within the designated downtown district.
But it's created by the charter?
No.
Is that what
No.
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 Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay, because it's extremely
Okay,
confusing.
that makes more sense. Thank you.
And it's not really governmental, where it's quasi-governmental is
Yeah, no, I
that we
understand
overlap.
that.
Yeah,
I was
it's a
thinking
not-for-profit.
charter, and I was not understanding,
Yeah.
but thanks for that clarification. And also, just as an FYI, because it's so confusing to everybody, this thing about the Main Street Alliance and Downtown District, there it is.
To everybody.
So you need to contact the Main Street people, because on their website, they don't say that, and I just would like to see all of this nonsense.
Sure.
Put your reps. Thank you very much.
Wait, what don't they say?
They don't say that you're a member.
Oh, yes, they do. We were just there yesterday. The Trust for Historic Preservation, National Main Street.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about the National Main Street Alliance.
Yeah, Alliance. It's not, there is a National Main Street Alliance. We are not a member of the Alliance. That's a different program altogether.
Isn't that the one
It's
that's
the-
associated with National Trust?
No. Just go to the Trust for Historic Preservation.
Yeah,
And I think it's even like Preservation Nation or something.
And then I went to Main Street.
Then hit programs. It opens them all. Then you can even hit accredited programs. In the 8 towns that are accredited through 2015 will be listed. We're definitely have to be.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that.
Sure.
That's-
So what's the name of the organization that you're accredited?
The National Trust for Historic Preservation. That's the National Main Street Program.
That's on our,
National Main Street Program.
Main Street America.
Main Street America. And that's a new logo because that whole program is
The one that's on
morphing also. Yeah, but it's,
All right. Good.
yeah, we were there because we follow it as they're changing, so we always keep looking.
yeah, let's not get into the, how they
Okay.
got
That's why
here.
I-
Okay.
it was just a-
Would you have a question, Mike? Would you like to step up?
It's more of a, thank you, John, for the presentation. It's more of a suggestion. I'd like to see the select board maybe hold a forum to continue this discussion with the people from downtown to see if, what their opinion are. Invite the residents, hey there, I didn't know you were over there. To invite the businesses and everybody else to see what they think. If this is going the way John is saying, if it needs improvement, if they have some suggestions that the select board can play into it. As you know, he said it, you're given $75,000 basically from the taxes, but we're also dipping into the general fund. And I would also recommend that you get Jonas Spivak and the people that are doing the brewery and the tap house and see their opinion about what would be the benefit to expand the district. I believe the district should be expanded, not only there, but maybe up to the old middle school.
Yeah.
It might give some monies for the old middle
Yeah.
school.
Did you get to the first part of the discussion when I was talking with Stu, or you were just, maybe
I might
just
have been
getting?
coming down, it was
Yeah.
screwed up on TV, terrible.
Yeah,
You
no,
couldn't-
no sound on. Yeah, I've got that. I think that if this meeting wasn't so interesting, I'd say we do it again.
No.
But we
I think you can catch up with a forum, which I would help you
Yeah.
put on
Yeah.
right here and invite everybody in like a town meeting only on downtown business, those issues, and see what the people want.
Let's see what happens over the summer, because I think, frankly, I'm looking to see some activity that might be coming our way, and how that might dovetail with your suggestion relative to the downtown community. Because I do think the downtown taxing district is too small. It needs to be broad. And how we get there, it's a charter process, and I think that will involve public meetings, forums, and the like. So
The only thing
let's-
to put it off this summer, we're now wasting a whole other season. And I think the people should be able to speak sometime in June. You've got plenty of days. I've checked that this is available. And I'd help you arrange it. It wouldn't take much for Ed Woods to put something in the paper a couple of times and see if people come. And if they don't come, they can't blame you for not holding it.
Well, thank you for that, and let's see where it goes.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. That's ending our discussion relative to tonight. Now, John, thank you very much for your presentation. Are you going to be doing this so it's actually viewable, hearable, and seeable?
Yeah, I'll do it on Cat TV where
Yeah.
I'll run the whole thing, and I apologize for that.
No, it's, hey,
And that's kind of an abbreviated version. The CAT TV will be the full dog and pony.
okay. Because I think this is a really good tool that you've shared with us and the successes, and appreciate the time and the effort that you and the BBC, the downtown merchants put into this. I just want to see even more activity, and we all do. So
Yeah, Tom, the
we're
best
all-
part, we have people come and visit us all the time that don't even have downtowns. And I was like, not only do we have a downtown, every single person in this community is concerned with it, which is, aside from issues, is the best sign that the future is going to be good. We all care about it.
My recommendation is we get by all issues that are getting in the way, and see how we can deal with those. Thanks, John. Next is our town clerk here. How are we going to handle this?
Well, we have two borrowings.
Yeah, I feel bad relative to holding everybody up.
And I'm joined tonight by Melissa Courier, Finance Director, Cassandra Barbeau, the Town Clerk, and Joan Pacino, our Treasurer. The Clerk and the Treasurer have some signing duties as well with these two instruments. The first is the Tropical Storm Irene refunding. This is the monies that we were unable to secure from FEMA for the ultimate completion of all of the work that we did in the rivers related to Tropical Storm Irene. Originally, the resolution talks about $1.5 million, and that's what we talked about borrowing over a 15-year period. We received a payment just within the last, I think, 4 weeks of just over $100,000 is one of the last FEMA payments that was due to us. So when you look at the payment schedule, you will note that we are only borrowing $1.4 million. We put this to People's United Bank and the bond bank as well. And Melissa did the analysis. The Vermont Bond Bank came in at 2.283%. The People's United Bank came in at 2.4. The difference in the two notes totals about $93. And Melissa is recommending, and I agree with her, that we go with People's United because it allows us to pay off the note earlier after the 10-year time frame has elapsed. The bond bank does not allow you to pay early.
There's no prepayment allowed under the bond bank scenario.
That's correct.
Can you refinance?
I'm sorry?
Can you refinance a bond bank at 10?
No, the bond bank may, after a period of time, refinance if rates drop. That's its decision because it's working on a portfolio that includes our money, but is not solely our money.
So if you wanted to refi, if rates went down very much lower, if you wanted to refi through People's, you could do it anytime it's advantageous to do it?
After 10?
Well, I'm not certain that's true. I think we have to carry this out because this is a bonding resolution.
Yeah.
We have to carry it at least 10 years.
Okay.
And then we can accelerate the payments. We might even be able to refinance. But the scenario we are looking at is actually accelerating the payments after that 10-year period and saving several $1,000s in interest payments, basically. Each of these documents contains a resolution. In the case of the refunding document, it does have a amortization schedule with some conditions that it requires the chair's signature only. I have highlighted the pages where the board needs to sign, and then Cassandra and Joni will follow through on the pages they have to do. This is $1.4 million refunding resolution. Normally what we recommend the board do is make a motion to waive the reading of the resolution and accept the certificate and the note for $1.4 million, and then I would circulate these documents for your signatures. And then we would follow that with the tax anticipation borrowing, which is the next document.
So let me ask that question again.
Hold on just a second. Maybe we could move the question, waive the reading, and then if I get a second, then we can have a discussion. A motion, second?
A second, though.
Good. Okay, go ahead, discussion.
I just want to get that clarified again. So under the People's United Bank scenario, you could refi, but it would have to be after 10 years. You couldn't refi if rates dropped, I don't know how much I don't know whether they could even drop a lot, but if they did drop by, I don't know, 30, 40, 100, let's say 100 basis points, you couldn't refi.
I think we're locked in for that first 10-year period.
Okay,
But
thank
the
you.
slightly higher interest rate allows for no prepayment penalties? Is that
That's
right?
correct,
Okay.
after that 10-year period, though.
So Stuart, the reason for being willing to pay a slightly higher interest rate would be the flexibility to prepay the loan. And I understand that we can't do that with the Vermont Municipal Bond Bank, but did you look into, and I know this is not what you're prepared for, but did you look into two loans, one with the municipal bank that would not be able to change, but a smaller one that we could prepay if we have funds that are available to go towards it?
No. We looked into borrowing actually $1.5 million over 15 years. That was the presentation that we made. We have paid down all that we have received from both, or from the state, from the federal government, and from our insurers. We are left with this note. It was an emergency bonding resolution, which did not require a vote by the people. And we feel that it really is time to put this into play, so to speak, so that we start paying it down on an annual basis and not counting on excess funds, because we're using excess funds to pay down a recreation center bonding. We hope to be able to pay that off before having to go to the bond bank, and that was a $600,000 note. Obviously, this is a sizable chunk of change, and we did not look at any variations on that theme.
I guess that because it's a sizable chunk of change, that lower interest rate looks a little bit more
Well,
attractive.
the lower interest rate is 2.3 versus 2.4. It's not substantial, and it literally, I think it's $93 more in the first interest payment. Both notes start the same time frame, and the interest over the long term, if we pay off early after that 10 years, we will save several $1,000s in interest payments over the bond bank.
One more question from me, sorry. What's the history of the Vermont Bond Bank's financing of things in Bennington versus People's United Banks? Obviously, back to Chittenden.
Most of our major debt has been through the bond bank, and I think back to the initial wastewater treatment upgrade in 1983. That was a $2 million borrowing. I can't think of all of the ones over the years, but we used the bond bank for the major monies, because the bond bank allows us to go out 20, 25, or 30 years. It was the board's desire, and our desire as well, to pay this off sooner rather than later, so we looked at a 15-year. That's about as max as People's would go. And we wanted to see what the competition would be, because we understood that People's would give us that accelerated payment after a period of time that the bond bank does not.
Are the costs associated with the loan the same, whether it's the bond bank or the?
Yes, it's basically, the fee is mostly legal fees paid to the bond bank attorney or to the borrowing attorney, and that's Paul Giuliani. He handles most of these bonding and borrowing resolutions throughout the state of Vermont.
And how often, Stuart, is it that, I should probably know this, but is it every other year that we have an overage that we could put towards something like this, or is it once in 3 years or once in 10 years? I recognize the budget process is we do the best we can, but there are a lot of not vague, but there are a lot of unknowns that go into it. But given that, how often do we have something that we might put towards this?
Not often. One of the things that the board did historically is commit about $200,000 a year out of our fund balance to keep the tax rate down and the increases down. That ate into our fund balance pretty substantially to the point now where, given the Irene indebtedness, we are running a negative fund balance because of that. So even though we've had a really good year this year, and we might have some excess funds that we can put into against the recreation center borrowing. It's such a roll of the dice. We may have a very good year in the general fund and a bad winter that takes the highway fund, taxes it very dramatically, where the excess funds are essentially used to balance from the auditing perspective, the general activities accounts, which are the highway, fire, and general funds. And so we've got to watch both, or all three funds, frankly, to ensure that we don't overspend. And even though we have been finishing in the black over the last several years, that's not something that you can always count on. Irene was a perfect example. And there are other things that go terribly wrong. The fire out at the wastewater treatment facility. That's not a tax funding issue, that's a sewer funding issue. And thankfully, we have insurance that will probably cover the cost of that replacement. But those are the kinds of things that you just cannot predict.
So I don't mean to be overly persistent on this point. Forgive me if I'm missing something critical. But if it's very infrequent that we would have overage that we would put towards something like this, why wouldn't the lower interest rate still, even though it's a small difference, why wouldn't that look better to us?
Because we can't change the payment.
We can't change the
amortization.
payment.
Even if we have money in the bank.
We can't accelerate the payments, we can't put additional money towards the bond bank. Once you're in the bond bank, your principal and interest payments are lined out for you, and that's what you...
There's an extra chair for Melissa.
But didn't you just say we very rarely have that ability, or we rarely have, very infrequently have the capacity to do that?
No.
I'll turn to Melissa.
Okay, go ahead. Melissa.
I'd like to answer to that.
Okay, thanks. I'm sorry to...
That's all right. It's true that we can't be sure, if there's going to be an excess in any particular year. However, currently, there is a budget line item of $40,000 that goes to pay down the rec center. We've incorporated that into the budget. After 4 years, we will have paid off the rec center completely before we have to go to bond with it, which has been the goal, my goal anyway, all along. Once we do that, we have 6 years left of the 10 years of the note with People's Bank that we can have that $40,000. So that's $240,000 that we will have available if we redirect that rec center budget line to the Irene note. My calculations of savings in the final 5 years were taking into consideration of paying down at least $250,000. And my savings, I think, were about $25,000 if we were able to set aside $250,000 before the 10 years were up. So the combination of possible excess as well as the $240,000 redirected from the rec center, I think more than guarantees, I can't guarantee, but I think that it's pretty likely that we'll be able to do it.
Thank you.
Is that helpful, Tom?
Yes, that's very helpful. Thank you. Okay. I'm sorry, Stuart.
That's all right.
No.
That's all right.
I'm an
This
interest rate
is why I have a
hound.
finance director.
So, further discussion. Is anyone ready to vote? Because I am. All in favor of the People's United 15-year amortization note, signify by aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Any?
We'll send that down the table.
No abstentions? Okay, everybody's in favor, 7 in favor.
The next one is more straightforward. This is our tax anticipation borrowing. We do this on an annual basis. Once again, we are borrowing $2 million. And these are funds that actually get us through the tax collection period, which is in early November. And I believe these will be paid back December of 2016. So we only carry this debt for 6 months. We've been very fortunate to be able to do that. There were times in my tenure as manager that we were borrowing $3 million and carrying it all the way through to fiscal year end in order to pay it off. So we've been doing much better This note is also through People's United Bank. It is at a 1.2% rate. Once again, we would need a motion to waive the reading of the resolution and a vote to accept the note. In this particular case, there are only 3 places for the board to sign. It does not require the chair to have a separate line item to sign because it's not a refunding resolution.
I move that we waive the reading of the resolution.
Second.
Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
There's 7 in favor, no abstentions or objections.
I shall send that down. And once all those documents are signed, Joni, you're going to take them with you when you walk out the room?
I will.
That's wonderful.
Joni, since you're here with the tax sales, they're coming due, what, the 23rd, is it?
23rd.
Okay. And you're...
We'll circulate the finalized list. We're still working with at least 2 property owners that are attempting to come up with the funds to pay off.
One paid. We're down, yeah, we've got
Yeah.
one collected, so.
So the list is shrinking, which is a good thing. We don't really like to go to tax sale on properties, but in these times, it is absolutely essential that people, and I can tell you, we work like crazy to get them onto agreements and have them stay there. So these folks are the long-time delinquencies, people who have failed to stay with us on agreements, who for whatever reason simply choose not to pay their taxes. And we'll see how successful the sale is.
Good.
But we'll circulate a copy of those properties that are going up before we go, once we're down to the nitty-gritty.
Do we have a sense, crazy question, but do we have a sense of how other communities in our part of the state are doing with tax sales? Do you have any idea how their communities are faring?
I don't know. I mean, that's not something we look into. Pownell just went through a number of tax sales. I think Arlington has just recently initiated a number of tax sales. I don't think Shaftesbury in a few years has. Joni might know better than I do.
North Bennington has contacted me. We're going to sit down and see what we can do to work together. She's going to be sending you a list.
Good.
So,
Can I ask why you're asking that?
No, I mean, are you interested in, is the number too big?
No, I'd like to know where, for example, tax sales have a certain bearing and a certain consequence from the economy, from how well we're doing, and I'd love to know how we're doing, for example, in comparison to another 15 or 17,000 person town in Vermont, or even in eastern New York State. It's just sort of benchmarking. I'm a nerd. I'm a dweeb when it comes to numbers, okay? I like to get numbers. I like to know what's going on.
There you go. Sign again then.
Thank you.
You get more numbers. Any more on those things?
No, once they're through, staff can be excused. And I think we can move on to the
solar array.
Solar array, paper mill.
Okay, let's do that. And I'm recusing myself because I have a representation of the estate in the applicant's matter, and so I have to recuse myself.
Mr. Chairman, I'm also going to recuse myself because in my day job, I've been working with this family. And
Would you then both sit in the back of the room until this discussion is over?
That's my pleasure.
Thank you.
Carry on.
Hey, Dan.
Hello. Hello, everyone. This evening, a little background. Solar array proposed off of Murphy Road. It's called the Paper Mill Solar. It's an approximately 3.5 to 4 acre array. Folks who want to develop this project have issued a 45-day notice, which essentially says that they can, if they so choose, apply to the Public Service Board for a certificate of public good for this project once the 45 days have expired. They don't have to apply on the 46th day. They can apply anytime after that. So the practice that the board has asked the Planning Commission to engage in is as these projects come in, the Planning Commission reviews them under the town plan and the solar siting ordinance, and then provides advice to the select board so that they, if they so choose, may provide comments either the same as, in addition to, et cetera, to the Public Service Board under that 45-day notice comment period. As you know, once these folks apply to the Public Service Board, there will be additional opportunity for the board to comment. So I would request or suggest that this be considered a preliminary hearing, if you would, and then the board could follow up with a second hearing if the folks apply to the Public Service Board, so that we can have a second chance to look at it. Because, as you know, these 45-day notice filings are very preliminary. There's a lot of information that we may need to make a final determination, but it's worth noting any big red flags that appear so that we can let the applicant know, and as well as the Public Service Board know that there may be some issues. Just a brief summary of the comments that the Planning Commission had. I can say essentially the Planning Commission really had no issues with this project. They just had some requests from additional information. There were some questions about details of the screening plan, some questions about, which they have provided since, where the statewide and prime ag soils are located, and they did make that request to the applicant, and I know that the board was happy.
Have those questions been addressed and answered to the Planning Commission's satisfaction?
To the extent that the ag soils have been identified, yes. And to the extent that at the meeting, Encore did commit to provide to us, when they filed to the Public Service Board, a much more detailed screening plan, as well as any visual impact analysis that they do at that time. So the Planning Commission is satisfied with the response, with the understanding that that information, some additional information will be forthcoming before the filing, and then we'll have another hearing at that time to review that information. So no big red flags at this point in the process. That being said, until you have all the information, until they have all the information, they won't be able to make a final determination. But that's kind of where we stand right now.
So we will purely regard this as a first meeting, and we will
I
have
think
to
that's
address it
appropriate.
subsequently.
I know
Since that's listed on the agenda, I think we fairly want to follow that.
Yes, and it's up to the board, and you folks will have to decide whether you want to make comment now or simply endorse the Planning Commission's comments or want to add to them. You don't have to make any comment at all. That doesn't mean you can't make comment after the second hearing, once they've filed with the Public Service Board. This process is really meant to give the applicant, more than anything, a heads up about, hey, we really need more information about this, or we really think this might be an issue, and gives them an opportunity to modify the application before they submit to the Public Service Board. So with that, I'm going to let a representative from Encore, Chad Nichols, right, Chad?
Yes.
Can I ask one thing before you start? For some reason, that door over there is open, and with it being open, it seems to send out a lot of noise that
unnecessary noise.
Is unnecessary. I'd like us to have our full attention on this. Thank you.
Great. So I'll be around to answer any further questions you might have regarding the Planning Commission's comments, but I'm going to let Chad respond to those comments, as well as make a presentation to the board, and we'll go from there. Thanks, Chad.
Yeah.
Welcome. Thank you.
Yes, hi. Thank you. Thank you for having me. We are working through some technical stuff to get up. I believe Dan sent information ahead of time, so we can go paper if we need to. So yeah, thank you.
Would you just once again identify yourself?
Yes, absolutely. My name is Chad Nichols with Encore Renewable Energy. I'm a project development manager. We are based in Burlington, Vermont, and are here today to talk about the Paper Mill Solar Project. I believe my colleague Derek Moretz has spoken with you multiple times. He had another conflict this evening, so I will attempt to fill in and fill his very big shoes. But there may be information that we will get back to you on, as he is definitely has some of the details. Yeah, so thank you again for your time. Thank you for the introduction. Fortunately, I was messing with the computer, so if I repeat any of Dan's information, I apologize. And we can get to those visuals in a minute. Essentially, the project that we're here talking about today is part of what I think is really a unique setup in terms of these projects that we develop. The total parcel, I believe, is in the 56-acre range, and it's part of the Randall family estate. We have some representatives from the family here, and they may speak during discussion. I believe the agenda calls for a quick overview. The idea here is to get to Q&A as soon as possible, and I think that we can do that. So I'll provide a brief overview, and then we'll get to the discussions as needed. I think Encore started working as far back as 2014 with the Randall family to do a solar feasibility study for the entire project. There was 3 main areas of the property that were identified as potential solar sites. And when we get the visuals together, I can show you. Long story short, there's a few characteristics of the property, one of which is a transmission line cutting as a diagonal across the property, so that immediately sort of plays into where things can be sited. There's a northern area identified that I believe was identified as a floodplain. There was an eastern array location around sort of the curve of Murphy Road. Again, it's beautiful. I'll show you all when it comes up. My visuals are the same that you've been provided ahead of time, so we can reference those in paper as needed. And then there's a western option that was sort of a secondary preference due to distance to electrical interconnect and for various other reasons. So throughout working with various stakeholders and doing some aesthetics analysis, we actually determined that our second choice, if you will, is the one to move forward with, which is the western option, if you will, in the visual. And so we think that that's going to provide a better project for aesthetics and various other reasons.
And how many acres did you say that was? 3, 4?
Sure, right. So the entire parcel, I believe, is in the 56-acre range, and we're looking to place a 500 kW solar net metered facility on 3.5 of that. The rest of the property, I believe, is in works to become under a conservation easement, and I believe there's some conversations around bike path access for the town. And so really the big picture use of the property will be those items, and then the solar facility on what is a very small percentage of the total acreage will help make the rest of that happen.
Excuse my ignorance. Will that array generate renewable energy certificates?
Absolutely, yeah.
And will they be kept in state or sold out of state, and where will the energy go?
Sure, absolutely. So 2 things. One, the basis of the net metering program with the state, of which this property is part of, or this array is part of via the GMP interconnection study. So the off-taker of the energy will be a local, most likely commercial, municipal, industrial off-taker. So they'll sign up and actually take the power. So that's the first sort of place that the power goes. The renewable energy credits, the RECs themselves, those are always to be determined at the time of array energizing. There's multiple options that can happen. As Dan mentioned, we're early in the process. This is really our first introduction to hear feedback on what folks want to see or not see in the project. So we're a ways from actually energizing and making that decision.
Is the disposition of the renewable energy certificates your decision or yours and the property owners?
It's a good question. It is ultimately the owner of the asset of the array's decision. The folks that are known as the off-taker, they could take them, say, for example, if it was a college and they'd like to retire those, that's one option. A lot of times there is financial mechanisms in place. We've all heard about various markets to sell the renewable energy credits. Sometimes that goes out of state. That's an option. Oh, cool. I thought it was like, oh, it was my adapter. It was his adapter, for the record. So let me just show you here real quick.
So just let me ask one more question, and I don't mean to interrupt, but I will. So it really is, it's Encore's decision about the disposition of the wrecks, and what has Encore generally done with the wrecks? Kept them in state, stole them out of state, put them on the market?
Sure. We'll pull these up as we discuss here. You're right. It's traditionally an Encore investor-led group. The ownership of the array is also to be determined.
Sure.
So there could be a third-party financing group that would ultimately be their decision. Encore sometimes does own and operate these assets themselves.
Okay.
Traditionally, we've done a mixture. There are some that we own and we do sell. There are some that have been retired. The point that I was getting to is really the rec market has really changed even in the last few months. As most folks may know, Vermont passed an RPS, Renewable Portfolio Standard, and that will come with a market. And so the option to sell the credits in a Vermont-based market will come to fruition over the next few years. What we're seeing right now in some of our larger projects, some of our direct utility PPA projects, is that the utilities are actually keeping them, and they're saying, we do not plan to sell these. We may in the short term to benefit our ratepayers, because it would be foolish to walk away from a financial revenue source for the next year or two. But as the Vermont market comes online, we plan to retire these to meet our renewable portfolio standards. So there's sort of a convergence of policy and finance, if you will, now. And so we're sort of in the middle of that, and we're seeing really different options play out as they go. So for this project in particular, too early to know. Obviously, once we do know, that would be information that's available.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So quickly, I don't know if I'm sort of standing right in the way of everyone to look at this, but you can see the property here. Just these are the same sort of visuals that were provided. And this is what I talked about at the top in terms of the multiple options for siting this property. What this doesn't show well, and you can kind of see in the angles of the two original and alternate locations, is that there is a transmission line which sort of already breaks up the property in terms of options. And so if we look at the original location that we talked about, very, very visually exposed, I think is a good way to I don't know how many folks have driven this curve of Murphy Road here, but this would benefit the project from an interconnect distance. These projects require a 3-phase connection from Green Mountain Power. The nearest location of that is just past the covered bridge there at the end of Murphy. And so the project would incur the cost of that improvement of those lines. And so this is obviously closer. And so it was determined that the best location for this array actually to allow for preservation of the rest of the property would actually be what we've sort of called this western option, even though it really is in the middle. And just a few things to highlight here, and then we can probably jump into Q&A if everyone is comfortable with that. The line extension you can see would terminate here at the bottom of the property. There is a temporary staging area needed for construction. The access to the array would be essentially an upgraded farm drive. A lot of these properties have existing farm drives. We like to utilize that as much as possible. You can get a general sense of 3.5 acres. There's a 100-foot minimum setback from the road, and then we are sort of up against the transmission line easement, if you will, to the north. And so it does kind of fit there. In terms of existing hedgerow along Murphy Road, this is also part of the reason that this location plays so well. That's a pretty robust existing tall plantings there, almost to the point of not touching and only adding where needed. And then we would consider, we do aesthetic analysis as these projects come together to complement this existing hedgerow to the east, eastern side of the array. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else there. I know that, and I think you touched on this, we've got a list of items to respond to from the Planning Commission. You know, we can take questions on those. I know some of them we have, and we do plan to formally respond to those as we move forward. You know, we're very familiar with that process and doing other
Chad, what's your
projects.
timeline for responding to those from the Planning Commission?
Timeline for responding to those, we would definitely do that within this comment period in the next
Yeah,
few weeks
yeah,
here.
okay.
It's not necessarily information that we don't know, it's just a matter of ensuring that we're answering the question right. The overall timeframe, and again, forgive me if we went through this, we're in what's called the 45-day notice
Yes.
period. That was provided, I think, May 20th. So what that means is basically that's a minimum. A lot of folks view that as a deadline. That's not a deadline, that at day 46, this is applied to the state. And so we use that period to do these meetings. Encore really likes to meet with the towns early as often, meet with the neighbors early and often to hear what folks like, what they don't like about the project. So we're in that period now. That would be followed by a certificate of public good application to the state of Vermont, which also comes with its own comment period. I believe it's a 21-day period after that. So we'd be looking to get to that point over the next few months here and potentially see the array installed by the end of the year. So that's sort of our general time frame, and then we'll react to things like the Planning Commission's notes, if anything comes from this meeting, neighbors, et cetera, as we go through. So
Will I ask my colleagues on the board if they have any questions?
I have a really basic question. I'm a visual learner. Can you place, like, where's Austin Hill Road? I'm having a hard time visualizing where this is geographically.
It's on this side? right?
It's just to the west. It's to
yeah,
the
I don't
west.
know if I'm on the web here.
You haven't gotten to Austin Hill yet.
Okay, so-
You continue
Yeah.
around and you get to Austin.
Right, so this is
It's
the...
off this way.
This is the paper mill side.
Okay.
Yeah, the bridge that I referenced is just off the screen here.
Okay,
At the beginning of Murphy.
okay. So it's pretty far from Austin Hill Road where that dives into Murphy. Okay. I just
yeah.
needed to visualize it.
Yeah. You're testing my Bennington street knowledge for sure, but, yeah.
Others?
I don't at the moment. I would just defer to the answers we received from the questions the Planning Commission's put forward. Those would be the kind of questions I would have at this moment, too. So.
Sure.
I just have a question for Dan. So far, Dan, I know you do say in this letter that the Planning Commission noted the insufficient information to make a final determination. Nevertheless, I think the question that I have is, with respect to screening, are you satisfied, or is that we need more information?
The general sense of the Planning Commission was they feel like probably the screening along to the south would be sufficient, but subject to the final visual impact analysis. They do believe, and I think Encore agrees, that the eastern hedgerow that's going to provide screening probably needs some significant improvement or additional planting. And that was something that Encore had already contemplated, and when they do file with the Public Service Board, they'll have a detailed screening plan for both of those locations. And so the Planning Commission was satisfied that concern will be addressed. Again, they'll have an opportunity after they file to make further comments, and if they're not satisfied with the screening plan, then they'll certainly let the applicant, the Select Board, and the Public Service Board know.
One final question with respect to this, and it just sounds a little bit foolish, but hey, people know me. There'll be fencing surrounding this, right? And the screening will screen the fences as well. The screening won't be inside the perimeter of the fencing.
That's correct. Yep. They'll have the kind of the agricultural fencing that we had approved for the town project, the same fencing. I checked with Derek to make sure. And yes, so that will be wrapped closely around the array, and then all the screening will be outside of that. One of the things that Derek did say for sure, which I thought was interesting, this particular project cannot be seen from any building in Bennington College. The one thing he couldn't answer was whether it could be seen from what do they call that area, maybe down on
The end of the
end of the
world.
world. And they were going to check that. He was not familiar with that term, and neither was I for.
What are they called?
What's
End of the world?
So,
The end of the world, so it's the end of the long.
yeah, and they were going to check that to see. That was one thing that the planning commission said it would be good to know that. I mean, it is a distant view, so it's not necessarily anything horribly problematic, but it was one thing we asked about. So, but other than that, it's not very visible at all from any building. It isn't visible at all from any building in Bennington College.
Jeannie, any questions?
So this sounds like a wonderful project. I'm assuming that the prime ag land, I tried to look at the information you provided, but I didn't know how to overlay it. So I'm assuming that this seems like this is a small amount of the land that's there.
Yeah, we do, I think one of the maps that was included shows it's not easy to read even when I pull it up. It kind of looks like designed for new camouflage. Yes, overall, the ag soil is something that we're obviously addressing on various projects. I believe that this site is the statewide classification of prime, and so I think that there's various levels, and the family can feel free to talk about the history of the soils, et cetera. But that is something that we addressed as we petition with the state.
Okay. And then I do think we should be paying attention to disposition of the wrecks. Because my understanding is if they are sold out of state, then they don't count toward our county's sort of duty to, provide our fair share of renewable energy. And while I think it's, I'm at one level happy to see as much as we can do, I don't want to see us ending up planting solar farms everywhere instead of crops. So, so I don't know, it feels like it is something that we do need to pay attention to, because for every project where the RECs aren't retired, then that's a project that doesn't count toward our quota.
Or that they are taken out of state and then retired.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's going to change or not, but it just feels like something we should be paying attention to.
Absolutely. I mean, my answer would be the same to your question in terms of, it is a decision for this project that's yet to be made, and we're happy to see Vermont with an RPS standard in place. A lot of times when these are sold out of state, it's because it's sold to a state with a standard, and so now Vermont will become a marketplace, and it'll really change the conversation away from in-state or out-of-state to, what's the Vermont market looking like for these things, so.
Any other questions or comments from my colleagues? I think one of the things that I want to be sensitive to is the fact that the comments here from the Planning Commission are preliminary comments. Obviously, we need to see the follow-on to that.
Absolutely.
Secondly, as you probably have read in a number of newspapers, we do have ongoing discussions about the suitability, the appropriateness of other planned solar arrays in this area, and we want to make sure that we approach this from a consistent point of view.
Yep.
That being said, I look at the third point that the Planning Commission has talked about, requesting some sort of a narrative that would describe how the proposed project complies with both the Bennington Town Plan and the town's recently passed Screening of Solar Facilities Ordinance. I mean, a narrative could be one way, a sort of a checklist of what does that plan say, what does the ordinance say, and how you do or do not check off each one of those components would be something that I think I would want to expect at a next meeting, if that's possible.
And we do plan to provide that. The two sort of checklists, if you will, or documents that you're referring to, we've obviously read through. We've been working in and around Bennington, followed the projects that made the news rounds here the last few months, and so obviously, in our industry, those are things that we want to make sure that we're complying with. So we will provide the formal documentation to the Planning Commission and provide that to you as well. The high-level version is that essentially the solar screening ordinance. We do feel that we meet those metrics. The eastern sort of addition that we've talked about a few times now of screening, I think helps that. This site has a lot of things going for it from a screening standpoint. We've seen a lot of projects that are, just totally exposed road frontage, and it would be all screening. We utilize berms on a lot of our projects. I think that's a term that's actually referenced in the ordinance. Those are very powerful tools if done right, where the array just disappears with an earthen berm, and then you're really putting landscaping on that to make that look visually attractive. And so we really do take our time. We do early, we have a landscape architect that we work with, a couple of them, that provide early aesthetic analysis, and we'll be able to identify visual impacts, and we feel that what's represented in that ordinance is our normal course of business.
And that would be delivered to us in some written form, some documented form?
Yep, yeah.
And when would that happen?
Hard to tell. In the next few weeks for sure, as we prep for submittal to the state. I know we talked, this is the first meeting, and I don't know if the second would be once we actually file. And so those are all documents that are part of that filing. So if not before, then definitely as part of the filing to be able to react to during that time.
Any other questions or comments, Jean?
Forgive my ignorance, I'm new to solar arrays. Dan gave me a great lesson, but questions just keep popping up. So,
no problem.
Encore says they're going to do this, 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 and this. Is there someone that says, okay, check, they did that, check that? Is that internal? Is that Encore? Is it the Planning Commission? I just don't know.
No, it's a great question. The certificate of public good, if you will, which is the permit that these projects are approved under, the long version short is that they come with a lot of conditions. So basically what you said that you're going to do as part of that development, whether it's additional screening, I mean, it's down to even the number of kilowatts AC coming out of the project. If you say it's 146 and it's 148, you're technically out of compliance. So that's a very regimented process to get the thing built. The ongoing compliance comes down in two forms. One, we're required as part of the ongoing ownership of the asset, depending on what that's made up of, to ensure that it's actually producing what it says it's going to produce. So that's sort of internal. We said it's going to, over the next 25, 30 years, produce X amount of electricity. We need to ensure that that's happening, and that comes with annual maintenance and et cetera, to ensure that it's producing. What we're seeing more and more, and I believe that Bennington's ordinance also references this, is that from a visual impact standpoint, a landscaping standpoint, there are annual compliance reporting that's required. And so these projects are saying, okay, once a year, I believe Bennington's is 6 months, 3 trees are dead, they need to be replaced. They're part of the plan that you said you'd plant and keep these maintained. And so those are sort of the two ways that I'd highlight that beyond what's said that's going to happen for actual construction of the actual array, there's ongoing annual requirements, both internally to ensure that it's functioning as we said it would for things like the group that takes the power, et cetera. The ongoing aesthetic compliance factors are in place now, and we're seeing that on a few of our projects. I think it's going to become a commonplace thing where we are required to annually report, yes, the landscaping plan is not only installed, but it's growing as we said it would, and we maintain that and keep those things alive.
Okay. Thank you. One last question I have, and then I'm going to just shut up. What is the lifespan of that array if and when you put it in?
Yeah.
How many years of useful life?
The beauty of these installations are that they really are set it and forget it. I don't know if anybody remembers that infomercial.
You and Ron Popeil, right?
Put the turkey in a thing and set it and forget it. They really are. And so once these are installed, again, there's annual maintenance to ensure that they're functioning. But we are, the contracts related to these are 20, 25, 30-year contracts. The production guarantees that come from these panels are in line with that. That's why the length of the contracts are as such. So 20-year warranty on a panel, much less what it actually can produce. And even in that time frame, it's similar. I know you were talking about lighting early on. It's similar to an LED, and forgive getting too technical, but
No.
an incandescent light bulb, when it's done, it doesn't turn on anymore. The filament broke and it's done. An LED would be given some crazy 10-year, 15-year lifespan. That 10, 15 years, it's not meaning that it's off, it's at 80% of its original output.
Okay.
Solar panels are the same way. So these 20, 25-year warranties from an output standpoint, that really still means they're producing 85%, 90% of their original output. So it's a very long, slow, diminishing curve. So these things are really lasting, decades in terms of producing output.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Other questions, comments? So I take it now that the process is that you will come back within a number of weeks with having responded to the Planning Commission and being able to respond to the questions and issues that we've raised.
Yep.
Specifically the narrative or the checklist on compliance.
Yep.
So, that's it. Thank you. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Will my two colleagues return to the table? I'm giving the gavel back to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Excuse me for one. I'll be right back.
The work session for the water and sewer. We have to set that up, right?
Yes. I did provide a calendar for you folks. I think initially, we talked about potentially 2 work sessions. Given that the budgets are up 2.6% in the case of the water fund, 1.3% in the case of the sewer fund, both resulting in 3% rate increases. I don't know whether you'd want to spend 2 nights on them, or whether you'd really want to try to do it in one.
Barbecue at your house, too.
That sounds fair.
You bring it.
So, tell me when.
When do we normally do it?
Steak.
It's usually-
We would normally,
I'll cook.
we would normally look at for the
Alternate Monday?
general fund, there's a planning commission meeting on Monday the 20th, but Dan has told me that he can relocate them in a timely fashion. We could meet at 5:15 or 5:30, Monday night the 20th, and right in the conference room at the town office. And
Let's do it.
Can you get a grill inside there?
we have a grill.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Well, you were there.
I'll cook, that's right.
That's right.
I'll cook.
I donated the grill. I don't think it's been put together yet, though.
You won't be here? I think Michael's going to be away too. He's going next Thursday. He's going Thursday.
Yeah, he might be away at that time.
And so that's 2, and I don't think that's good. And the following, I think that's one of the things we're going to touch on, how we make sure everybody's going to be around. And Monday's always really good for Justin too, I think, right?
The Mondays work best.
Yeah. When does this have to be in place?
Well, theoretically, it should be adopted by June 30th.
Yeah.
Because it is for the next fiscal year, and I think our last quarterly sewer bill comes in around the 28th.
Yeah, that's
So
the
we'll be
20th.
looking to bill again sometime early July.
You're not going to be here next Monday, right?
I'm trying to remember Monday. I'm trying to remember what time. It's put for Monday, maybe it's not.
Yeah. Let's try for next Monday.
20th?
Yep.
We want steak.
6 o'clock? Yeah.
You're cooking, Jimmy.
Could we do it 5:30?
5:30 is fine, yeah.
Here?
5:30 is fine.
No, we'll be at the
At the
conference
town
room,
office.
town offices.
Yep.
Principally a work session.
And for anyone that's going to be away or think they're running late, just check to see what they have here. If there's any questions you want directed through me or anyone else, just let us know. You're going to be gone next Monday, right?
I'll be gone next Monday.
We're going to do a work session.
Next Thursday.
Yeah, we'll do a work session next Monday, which is fine. I think it'll be fine. Okay.
Great.
Anything more in the manager's report side of things beyond what you've shared with us?
I don't think so. You know, I tried to give you a little bit more detail on the 2016 discussion. Hope that proves helpful. And there really hasn't been a lot of activity on the PFOA issue. There wasn't a meeting of the engineering groups, including the state of Vermont, our engineers, North Bennington's engineers, and St. Gobain's engineers to go over the engineering proposals that have been submitted. And according to Jay Dolmich, our engineer, he still thinks that things are moving in a positive direction. And as you all know, St. Gobain and Honeywell did sign a consent order with the state of New York regarding the Hoosick Falls and Petersburg situations. That too is a positive.
What does that phrase mean?
Pardon me?
They agreed to the responsibility for meeting.
Yes.
Good.
So we'll know more. State is continuing to test wells. They're still looking to find the outer bounds of this particular problem, but they appear to be coming closer and closer. We're finding more and more non-detects as we move further out from the site.
We've got DEC coming the next meeting.
DEC will be coming as the 27th, and they picked that date because they're hoping to have some more information for us other than what you're seeing in the normal PFOA updates that I've been forwarding out to you folks.
That's great.
And there's one more round of blood testing coming up, isn't there?
Yes, there will be something in September, I believe. They're pushing it back later into September, I believe, or is it July? I can't remember now. They hit the first round, and then they hit the college students at the end of May, and then I think it's July, they'll be doing some additional testing, and this will be for people who have now been determined to have PFOA in their wells.
That's it, right?
That's it.
Okay. Just jumping back to the sewer and water fund budgets. Last year, I think there were 3 of us that went to the water treatment plant, and that was really, you wouldn't think it'd be interesting?
Fun.
It was. So if you get a chance between now and whenever, it's interesting to see the quality of the workmanship and also the due diligence that Terry and his crew exhibit to try to keep this plant running, sometimes with nominal resources. And
duct tape.
And and so that's why a lot of this, if you look at the depreciations and those things relative to future purchasing, 311,000, that's just somewhat. There's a reason for that, but I think it's helpful if you see why, because if we don't have that, we're going to be behind the 8 ball again. And that was a couple years ago a problem, and now we're somewhat caught up or just about caught up, right?
Yeah, we really have made great strides as far as budgeting for the depreciation when you consider all of the years that we didn't do it at all.
Yeah.
And so I congratulate not only this board, but the previous boards for making that step, because that is really, really important.
But Terry's always receptive, and he loves to give a tour with his team. So, any other business to come before the meeting? I'll just open it. Jump ball. Any others?
I'd like to make sure we get this working session with the folks from Vermont League of Cities and Towns. That's been hanging fire. I think it's important as a refresher for some of us and as an orientation for our new members. And I'm dismayed we're kind of late on that. So when can we do that?
I think because we've had some problems setting dates in the last conversation I had with the league, they were focused on the 30th. We've got a number of people who can't make that date. So we're going to be pushing it back into July. I mean, we can do it anytime, but I would like to make sure that we get it a majority of the board is able to attend. We're planning to host a luncheon. It'll be a working session, 10 to 2, 10 to 2:30. And so if there are, and I wish I'd brought a calendar that highlighted those days, but I'd like to see it come sooner rather than later, because they continue to get booked up. As we don't take dates, they get booked. So you folks tell me.
Our calendar right now for July, that's when we're looking at?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry about my glasses. I can't see. Go ahead, what you're thinking about then.
A couple things. One idea that I got through social media, and it comes by way of Monique Janellis, Dr. Peter Janellis' wife, which I thought is a great idea, and that is the establishment of a dog run in the downtown area. We've got, the property adjacent to Stewart's that I think, the town cemetery that might be amenable to that, or I'm open to other ideas about it, but it was certainly enthusiastically greeted on Facebook. So I think it's something we ought to talk about in the future. Second, Stu, this goes more to you. I've got it's a second call from a business owner up on the west end between the museum and Benmont Avenue about feral cats. He's saying it's really becoming
Yes, and that is a problem. We've been talking about it in-house. We don't have a law that provides us an opportunity to prohibit that kind of thing. In this particular case, not all of those cats are feral. There are a good many of them that are pets. And we don't really have the assistance of the Humane Society anymore. Second Chance Animal Shelter is a saving operation. And in many cases, they would be overwhelmed by the number of cats that they would have to capture and keep.
well, here's something that other communities have done. I heard this on NPR, is that, and it's not going to come cheap, but still, they're catching these feral cats, or those suspected of being feral, and sterilizing them so that they're not reproducing.
That's normally what happens when Second Chance takes in an animal, or the Bennington Kennel Club takes in a stray dog. They spay and neuter the animal, and then they try to find it a home. That's pretty much standard practice.
SNAP program, spay neuter assistance program.
Yeah, but it's yes, there's a cost involved, and we have a part-time animal control officer. We don't have the equipment to try to trap all of those cats that appear to be in that neighborhood. And I know we're now talking about approaching the owner of the home to see if there's a way to reduce the numbers cooperatively. We had a situation elsewhere in the community where people who thought they were doing good things were actually leaving food for cats at an abandoned property. And we were able to talk them out of that because the cats will find places elsewhere. And the last thing you really want is this whole congregation of animals in one place.
In the case of wild animals, I'm very sorry to mention this, but it has been on my mind. A couple of people have been dropping off live trapped woodchucks at our property out on the east side of town. And boy, does that make me mad when we already have a woodchuck problem. But it's just a reminder that it's illegal to capture and transport live wild animals. And it's particularly dangerous when it's any animal that could have rabies. So raccoons are a particular culprit, but also possums and other things like that. So.
And I
Don't
will
drop
mention-
woodchucks in don't drop woodchucks in East Bennington, please.
I'd mention, I also have received calls, such as Jim has, about feral cats, perhaps from the same person. Yeah.
Can we, do we have anything in the reserves to hire an independent contractor to round them up, bring them up?
Well, we can take a look at that.
Yeah.
We can take a look at
But I
that.
think your best bet is the persuasion versus coercion
Yeah.
technique. But when, July got, not the 4th of July week, but you're talking about a Wednesday or Thursday? The Thursday?
Yeah, I think a Wednesday or a Thursday is probably the
Yeah.
best time for them to get down here.
Yeah. We have the 13th and 14th, and then 21st, and 27th, and 28th.
What time of day are we talking about?
10.
10 to 2, 10 to 2:30, lunch included.
Better
Not the
mistake.
20th. Not the 20th.
Not the 20th. Okay, it's not the 20th. That's good. Let's get rid of what's not available.
Yeah.
I don't have my calendar. I think the 13th is not good for me.
Okay.
20th is the only day I can do.
Oh, are you serious?
13, 14, 20, is that what you're offering?
Yeah, 13th, 20th, and 27th. And I'm saying that without even looking at my calendar. But that's not good either.
I'm good on the 13th and 14th.
I'm pretty flexible. As long as there's steak.
Just send out the dates and do the best you can.
Why don't you try for the 13th? Okay. And let's just see what happens.
Okay.
Because I think we just have to hone on a date and then try to work our schedules around it.
You know, we do budget sessions on Saturdays. Would the LCT have any objection to coming down on a Saturday?
It's, well, I mean, these...
They're bureaucrats, they don't come.
Well,
Okay.
they're not necessarily
Upset.
bureaucrats, but, they're staff people.
That's off the record.
They work for a living. I think they'd like to spend their weekends at home.
Okay.
Good point. Okay, try for that. Any other questions?
One very brief. Citizens for Greater Bennington is currently accepting proposals for projects that support the long-term economic vitality of downtown Bennington. And there are, if you're a nonprofit or associated with the municipality, they're accepting grants for some of those funds this time.
What's the application period deadline?
You have to ask my wife. Let's see. That is, request for proposals should be submitted by noon on August 1st.
Okay.
And they go to meg@ptvermont.org.
I just want to remind everyone that school is out, so the kids will be out and about on their bikes, so extra care. And wear your helmets.
And add to the good news, kids being out, the Benmont Bridge is going to be closed right now for 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
When does it close, when's the dates?
Yesterday until...
Started the 13th, and it'll be closed through the next 2 weeks. The beauty of it is they're putting down the
Final
deck,
deck,
and it needs to cure. That's what it's all about.
Wait, that's the end of the project?
Pardon me? They hope to have traffic, two-way traffic on that bridge in August, late July, early August.
I'm going to forget to go that way.
Yeah, but business, I feel really bad for the businesses.
And I think the August time is about the time the roundabout should be finished, right?
Yeah. Speaking of the Bennington Ninja bike path, walking path behind the future Walmart is really nice. I took a bike ride through that area, and you can actually ride on the pavement, and it feels like you're somewhere else.
It's a good primer for what we're going to have there. So, and town will probably begin within the next 2-3 weeks, the portion of the Ninja Path from Bennington College entrance at Silk Road to Hanford. So that portion will be done in July, early August.
It's going to be great. And you'll be able to get all the way from Bennington College to Hicks Avenue, actually to the walking bridge across the river, the country.
We still need to get permission from Hanford and the state, but we're working on both of those so we can get the primitive path through so people can see.
Yeah.
We can go from it and,
Great. Great. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No abstentions, no objections. Thank you. Good.